The Notre Dame Fighting Irish are on their way to another top 5 class.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This crossover of Locked On Irish and Locked On the Portal. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, along with Tyler Wojciak of Locked On Irish. And this is going to be straightforward Notre Dame recruiting from start to finish. We hope to get it all in 30 to 35 minutes. But Notre Dame is a recruiting machine, Mr. Wojciak. And to be honest, I don't think there's a better place to start than at quarterback, which has a little bit of drama. Maybe they're going to flip Camden Lipati, maybe not. So what say you? He's from West Valley, Utah, big quarterback, 6'3", 220 pounds. Been committed to Illinois forever, which is weird for a kid from Utah. But Notre Dame gets involved. Do they get it done, and why? What is your take?
I do think they're going to get this done. And this has been one of the weirder quarterback recruiting cycles for Notre Dame. You think about all the twists and turns. Like, they were pretty late to offer any quarterback in this class. Then they offer Peyton Houston, Teddy Gerard. They get Gerard to commit rather quickly, but then he reclassifies into the class of 2026. So then they're starting really all over again, even later in the process. And it seems like they've really identified two guys. It's Camden Lipati and Champ Mons. And at this stage, it seems like Lipati is their guy, and they're doing everything they can to get him to flip his commitment from Illinois to Notre Dame. He was on campus this past weekend, and by all accounts, it went really well. And not only that, it seems like Lipati is the perfect fit at a place like Notre Dame. He talks about life after football, networking, developing on and off the field. And it's very rare for Marcus Freeman to lose on a recruiting battle with a kid like Lipati, who cares about all the things that Notre Dame is selling, unless it's like Caleb Downs going to Ohio State. Like, Caleb Downs would have been a perfect fit at Notre Dame, but then he went on to it started at Alabama and then ended up at Ohio State. So you can miss out on a Caleb Downs, but I think in a recruiting battle for a player like Lipati between Marcus Freeman and Brett Bielema, I'm picking Freeman.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pick on Bielema, but that's not the same deal. Maybe he's a fun guy, but I think Marcus has the edge there. I agree. I think Camden Lipati will end up at Notre Dame. The question is how quickly, and that's important because the second question, Notre Dame finally is on, for lack of a better phrase, stable ground at wide receiver for at least a big-time program. To keep that going, of course, you got to bring in more talent. It seems like Quentin Burrell has been on the Notre Dame radar forever. Plays at Mount Carmel, the best program in Chicago. Will he commit? This is a little different question. I'm going to throw something a little different at Tyler. Will he commit prior to his June official visit? Or will this end up being one of those guys that got away? Because, again, this is dragged out for a couple of years. He's been on the radar forever.
He has been on the radar for a really long time, and Notre Dame hasn't had as much success recruiting the Chicago area as you might think. I mean, they famously missed out on Justin Scott. They missed out on Carnell Tate, and Burrell might not be in the same tier as those two guys, but it is someone that Notre Dame has prioritized from the very beginning. He's actually on campus today as we speak, so I'm sure that the Notre Dame coaching staff is trying to close the deal there. But if he does decide to drag this out a little bit further, obviously it's not going to be great for Notre Dame, but part of it might have to do with who is going to be the quarterback in this class. I do think that can complicate things when you're trying to recruit wide receivers and you don't have that person committed just yet at the most important position, which is why I think Notre Dame is going to go so hard to try to get Lipati to commit here in the near future, because then once you have him on board, then you can start selling him and everything else to these wide receivers like a Burrell, like a Julius Jones Jr. So for now, I'll say he will ultimately commit prior to his June official visit, but I don't think it's going to be like this week or on his recruiting visit, because I still think they need to figure out the quarterback position first.
Yeah, the only thing with that I'd push back, I mean, he's been on the radar since like his sophomore year. He's been visiting, something like that. I thought he was a Notre Dame guy, like he was a fan or something. I'm kind of surprised he didn't commit, but we'll see. What about the opportunity to get Julius Jones Jr.? Obviously, his dad played at Notre Dame as a star NFL running back, Cowboys, Seahawks, and Saints. Is that going to get done before the end of June, and will they even get him? And finally, the wild card at wide receiver is Cade Cooper. He's out of Malvern Prep in Pennsylvania, another big-sized guy that's kind of coming up the ranks. Are they going to get any of these three? What do you think?
I do. I ultimately think they will get Julius Jones Jr., but you're right. This is going to be a fight, probably a bigger fight than they might have anticipated, because it seems like with Julius Jones Jr., early on in his recruitment, it kind of felt like he was leaning towards going a different path than his dad, which happens sometimes. I totally understand that with kids, especially ones who share the same name as their father. Like, you don't want to go to the same school and just try to replicate what they did in their career. But then it seemed like Notre Dame had a lot of steam. They had a lot of momentum going their way to the point where I actually thought a commitment was imminent. Now, that hasn't happened yet. Oregon has been really doing their best to get him to come out there. Miami is active as well, and he's a little bit closer to Miami, so that's always going to be a concern there. But with the way that Marcus Freeman has recruited legacies, I ultimately think he's going to be able to get this one done too. And he's such a big priority. Like, I believe that Julius Jones Jr. is their number one prospect at the wide receiver position when you consider the fact that he's such a big priority and the fact that he's a legacy and Marcus Freeman's track record recruiting guys just like Julius Jones Jr. I think they're going to get that done. And then once they get him on board, I think you're going to start to see other guys make a move too so that they can secure his spot. But I think that is the one they want the most. If they can get him, then other dominoes are going to start to fall.
That one's going to be interesting because I know Julius, he's a good guy. He's really trying to take visits. The timing of this is very important, as you duly noted. If he waits till late June to early July, you don't get the effect. I mean, I know that's not what Julius is worried about, but if you get him committed by like early May, then that's a major feather in your cap when you walk into all those visits. And for the record, Notre Dame's two big weekends are June 12th and June 19th. That's fine. But again, you want to have that stuff already lined up because everybody knows who he is. He goes to every major event, every major 7-on I go to, Under Armour camps, all that stuff. He's always there. So that's an important one. Next up, this is a fun discussion point. Zyron Forstall committed to Texas A&M. Really good defensive end. He's from the New Orleans area, went to IMG. Notre Dame misses out. It is what it is. You don't get everybody. Will they get at least one of KJ Green? He's an Atlanta area kid. Abraham Cisse out of Downingtown East, outside of Philly, or Aiden O'Neill, a kid that's in one of the private schools out there in New Jersey. Do they get at least one of the top DNs on their board?
I think they're going to get Cisse. I was not shocked at all to see Forstall go to Texas A&M because I feel like whenever I asked anyone about him and the opportunity for him to end up at Notre Dame, the answer was always some form of, well, if they can just get past Texas A&M. Like, it was very clear who was the leader throughout pretty much his entire recruitment. And Notre Dame was always sort of working from behind in that sense. And even though they put up one hell of a fight to land him, I'm not shocked. So I think Notre Dame was probably aware of that as well. They probably understood where they were at in his recruitment. So, they're looking at a couple big-time players at the position. They're trying to replicate what they did last year by landing Rodney Dunham and Ebenezer Iwatade, two studs on the edge. And as you and I have talked about many times before, that is not a position where they've experienced a ton of success in recent years. But now that's starting to change, and they're going after these guys who, in the past, they might not have even tried with. So I do ultimately think they're going to get Cisse. It seems like things have been trending well for him. But with Aiden O'Neill, he plays at Don Bosco, and their defensive coordinator is a friend of mine, a Notre Dame grad. So I might have to get in his ear and say, hey, man, you need to start pushing him a little bit to South Bend. He probably wouldn't do that, but I feel like it's my duty to at least put the word in and see if he can help try to get him to Notre Dame, because he's an extremely talented player, comes from a great program that has produced so many other great players. So if they can get one, that's great. If they get two, that's a home run.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got two really good ones last year. You can get different kinds of players, and that's fine. But at the same time, guys that are just pass rushers like Cisse, KJ Green, etc., you can't ever have enough of those guys. You just can't. And to that end, Notre Dame's finally got it started. You don't want it to slip away. If you can get stacked classes like that, it changes the trajectory of your program. From pass rushers to pass protectors, will the Irish land a second big-time offensive tackle in the 27 class? Notre Dame's already got James Halter. His dad played at Notre Dame, late 80s, early 90s. He's from Central Catholic in Pittsburgh. I watched his film again yesterday. Really good. They recently offered, I want to try to pronounce this, Olu Wazamolor Olu Babola. He's a kid that's really highly rated out of St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City. kind of late offer. It's interesting. Leighton Van Brandt's going to be on campus again soon. Cameron Wagner, they've had on campus several times. They're really after Albert Simeon, the kid out of Louisiana. He could play tackle, but he's probably better at guard. What do you think? Is this just, we'll take the first one that wants to come, or they, with Halter in the boat, that kind of helps. What do you think the situation is at tackle?
I think they're going to go all in on Von Brandt. I'm actually surprised he hasn't committed to Notre Dame already. That does kind of give me pause about whether or not it's actually going to end up happening, because it felt like they were so close for such a long time. But as you pointed out, he is going to be on campus soon, and I feel like the staff is going to go all in during that visit to try to get his commitment, because it is something that they have been chasing for a really long time. And if they're not able to get it done then they might start looking at those backup options. Although, we call them backup options. These are top 50 players in the entire country, so they certainly have their work cut out for them there. But I think they're just trying to keep their options open while they can. But to me, Von Brandt is the guy that they want, and they're going to do everything they can to get him. And if they can't, they're going to look elsewhere. And also, Notre Dame is in a pretty stable position at tackle. You think back to the class 2 years ago when they got Will Black, Strabig, Augustine. Like, they were really tackle heavy in that class, and it felt like in the most recent one, they were going to focus more on the interior, and then they did at the beginning. But then pretty late in the cycle, or I guess I should say after they had already secured several offensive line commits, then they get Grayson McHugh, and they also get Charlie Tom. And then all of a sudden, you're like, wait, they have a bunch of tackles in this class as well. So I think they've been very selective in this class. They're not trying to take a bunch. They've already got Halter, like you pointed out, but I think Von Brandt is the next guy they want really badly. If they aren't able to get him, they're going to have to explore some other options, but he is the guy they want.
Yeah, I think that's the case. The interesting part is before the Penn State saga of last year imploded, the O-line coach there had gotten his commitment. He's now at UF. He recently visited there, so that's going to be very interesting. Florida, no offense to them, but the last staff, they did not recruit O-line very well. There's playing time available in Gainesville. Yeah. That's an attractive place. Like, I'm sure you've been there or know about it.
I have. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. That's a pretty easy sell. I'm curious to see if Van Brandt is kind of stuck in between. It's harder to get on the field at Notre Dame, but their history here recently is grotesque, and they're the better program by a long shot right now. So I guess it's a good option either way. That might be the holdup. So I'm curious, like you said, the visit's coming up. If you don't close it out soon thereafter, then anything is possible. We might be looking at one of those. Well, heck with it. I'm just going to take all my visits, and we'll see where it goes from here. But when we come back, we're going to talk a whole bunch more. We got a lot more recruits to get through right here on this crossover, Locked On Irish and Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It is tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, and emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. This year, you're getting a major upgrade, though. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations all across the country. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you are done. TurboTax experts work to get your every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club in the link down below as well. Both Tyler and I are a part of it. You can get a first month free with the code MARCH. Check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description. All right, Tyler, let's continue on. We got a lot to get to here, man. I probably overdid it with all the questions, but more is better than less. Jackson Dollar, I'm sure most Irish fans are familiar. He's a tight end from the greater Charlotte area. Very athletic kid, kind of built like a basketball player, if you will. Most likely tight end, I think, right now. Is there anybody else, and I didn't want to go into this, that you think is likely? Is it Terwilliger? Is it somebody else? Or is it just, you know what, they're in on a bunch of guys. Let's see where this kind of goes. What do you think?
Well, they're certainly going to try everything they possibly can to land Jackson Dollar. And I'm glad you pointed out how he looks like a basketball player. The most impressive thing that I have seen him do is actually a basketball highlight. Like, I've watched his football film. It's very impressive. But he had this dunk in a high school game. I'll send you the video when we're done here. It is it's going to take your breath away. You watch that and you're thinking, man, maybe is he playing the wrong sport? Because he just has this fast break dunk where he just basically covers half court in 2 or 3 steps. He looks like Giannis out there and just delivers this unbelievable dunk. And I saw that. I go, dude, I don't care what it's going to take. You got to get that guy on campus, because if he can do that, just imagine what he can do on a football field. And ever since Seneca Driver committed to Oklahoma, he has become their main focus. Notre Dame was in pretty good standing with both of those guys, and the Driver kind of surprised a lot of people when he committed to Oklahoma. And I actually don't even think Notre Dame is finished recruiting him. I think they're going to continue to make some calls, gauge interest there. And, they're going to kind of put up a fight until he tells them, hey, I'm not coming there. Leave me alone. And then after that, you can look elsewhere. But I think all their focus is going to be on Jackson Dollar, because if you can get him and you don't get another tight end in the class, I think it's perfectly fine, because he is just that good. And they also have Ian Premer and Preston Frizzell in the class in front of him. But if they aren't able to get Dollar, and it seems like Georgia is going after him pretty hard as well, so that is not going to be an easy recruiting battle to win. Then they can start looking at like a Landon Wolney, a Terwilliger, or Malik Howard. They can start looking at alternative options. But I think right now, priority A, B, and C is Jackson Dollar.
I saw Malik Howard recently at the Sevens tournament in Atlanta. I had a chance to talk to him. Great kid. He can really cover some ground too. I mean, the tight end class this year is really good again. And you got 2 really good players last year, maybe the best one in Premer. Notre Dame's not exactly in a terrible spot. If all they got was Jackson Dollar,
yeah, that's a win.
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it as well. So just saying, I mean, we're talking about Notre Dame having another top 5 class, and you need 2 to kind of like do those things, but it's not like Notre Dame would be in a bad spot. I mean, they don't have a position on the roster. They're in that spot. Is Notre Dame going to sign the defensive tackle from Modern Day, Montana? And I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Tololo. And what about Marcus Fakatu? Should he be considered a D-end, a D-tackle? Do we know? A couple of California guys there on the board. What are your thoughts on the D-line recruiting?
I think they're going to get Fakatu because I think he might be the number 1 overall prospect on their board, regardless of position. He reclassified from 2028 to 2027, and I do feel like Notre Dame at least played a part in that. I think they were like, hey, man, you're ready to go right now. And you think back to just how early they started recruiting him. As a true freshman, they were already all over that. And, now that he's gotten more notoriety, he's gotten better as a player, more people have come to the table, certainly. But it's pretty rare for Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame likes to get in on guys early, no doubt. But I felt like with him, it was especially early, and they have just been on it the entire process, even after Al Washington left. Like, as one of the first priorities for Charlie Partridge once he became a part of the Notre Dame coaching staff was to recruit him aggressively. So I do ultimately think they're going to get this done, just because, again, he has been such a big priority for them since he was a freshman in high school. And when they place that amount of emphasis on a single player in the Marcus Freeman era, they've been able to get it done more often than not. So ultimately, I think they will. It's probably more of a fight than they anticipated, because he has just become such a big time prospect, but it's a player that they like a lot at a position of need, and they kind of have to get this one done when you consider the amount of time and energy they spent on him.
Yeah, I remember when I met him when he was coming out as a freshman. He was with a 5-on-5 team, California Power at the time. And somebody said, yeah, he's a freshman. I said, shut up. When I saw him last year, he was 6'7.5". He's not even listed properly. He told me if he got much taller, he'd have to move to offensive tackle. I think he'd stop, but he's like 290 now. When I first met him, he was like 245.
Yeah.
Totally changed his body, and he looks completely different. He might be that rare interior guy or that swing player that plays strong side end. Then on another play, he moves inside. Like, those guys are a nightmare because the other team doesn't know where he's going to line up on like a critical 3rd and 6. Those are rare players.
I'm trying to think of who said it, but when he was on a recruiting visit, this was, I think, last season, he was on campus for a recruiting visit with his family, and there was an NFL scout there to watch Notre Dame practice and thought he was a player and asked him, like, hey, what position, what's your number? What position do you play? And he's like, I'm a high school recruit. Not only that, he's like a freshman. He's that big. Like, he's that physically imposing. Yes. So I'm drawing a blank on who said that. But when I heard that, I was like, that's crazy. And then you actually see him and you're like, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, when I met him as a freshman, I thought they were kidding me when they told me his age. So I get it. I 100% get it. All right, next up, Notre Dame was able to get not one, but two really good running backs in Lathan Wisington and Isaiah Rogers over the last few weeks. What do you make of the ridiculous nature of Notre Dame's recruiting situation, specifically at running back?
It's kind of funny how spoiled Notre Dame fans are right now because, you just have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. And I guess I'm surprised at the reaction from some of the fans about landing Wisington and Rogers because I think they're really good players. But people are like, well, it's not, come on, spell, like he's not going to be Jeremiah Love. Most running backs are not going to be Jeremiah Love. Like you have to reset your expectations a little bit because if you're comparing everyone to Love, then every single prospect is going to be a disappointment because Jeremiah Love was a generational player and Jadarian Price was exceptional as well. But I think, when you think back to like last October when Spell decommitted from Penn State, he was on campus for the USC game. Depending on who you talk to, there may have been a silent commitment during that weekend. And then there was that video of him scoring a touchdown in his high school game, and he's flashing like the Jeremiah Love celebration. And, all signs kind of pointed to him ending up at Notre Dame and potentially being the next great Notre Dame running back, and what's becoming a long list of them. So, ultimately, after many twists and turns, he ends up committing to Georgia. Who knows if he'll end up signing there on signing day, because I feel like with him and the way that his recruitment has gone, there's probably more twists and turns to come. But because they were so close with him, I feel like fans aren't appreciating just how good Wisington and Rogers are because they are very talented. Notre Dame got it done really quickly. And I think the fact that, once Wisington committed, Rogers realized like, oh my gosh, I have to commit right now to secure my spot because Notre Dame was also after Cigar and some other running backs as well. That should tell you just how highly coveted that position is to be a running back at Notre Dame. When these guys get that offer, it means a lot to them. And when you have top 10 running backs scrambling to get in the door at Notre Dame, basically, that should tell you all you need to know about the position and the way that Notre Dame has been recruiting at the position as of late.
Absolutely. Notre Dame is killing it at running back. They're as deep as any team in the country after losing potentially 2 first-round picks, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's really not. When we come back, we're going to roll on with more Notre Dame recruiting right here on this crossover Locked On Irish and the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood Prediction Markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood Prediction Markets change the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. You always knew the game, but never had the dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now you can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator, play-by-play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the United States. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel and the NCAA tournament. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty with the Final Four. It's one of the best times of the year. The brackets are just getting destroyed, but for everybody, buzzer beaters, upset, it is nonstop action from tip to final cut down. And right now, FanDuel is giving customers a new way to stay in all the action all the way through the Final Four. And you can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can make it however you want. Game picks, futures, halftime scores, props on players, whatever it is you want to do, and even same game parlays. Visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. All right, Tyler, let's jump right back in and have a little bit of fun here. This is a lot of questions and a lot of data, but man, there's a lot of stuff going on here. What would make you believe that Notre Dame is going to sign a top 3 recruiting class? You could name a position that goes well, a player, a combination. Carte blanche, my friend. Fire away.
If they can get Lapati and Julius Jones to commit before the end of the month, I think it's very possible because they need to start the run soon. Like they've had some momentum, obviously, at running back. They landed 2 commits in recent weeks, and it's like, okay, things are starting to pick up. And it's around the same time this happened last year. If you remember, Rodney Dunham committed to Notre Dame on April 10th. And, with Dunham being such a highly sought-after prospect, a 5-star at a premium position, once Notre Dame did that, you're like, oh, wow. Like this that was the first sign that this class was going to be different. And then it seemed like after that, they had a huge run in the spring. Then it cooled off a little bit during like May. And then they had those 2 big official visit weekends in June. And then they went crazy. Like they landed pretty much every single prospect that stepped foot on campus during that time. But it all started around this time, and they might not be in position to land a player like Dunham unless one of those defensive ends like Cisse or maybe even Leighton Von Brandt. Like he's a borderline top 50 player in the country. So if they get him, maybe things can change. But I think when you consider the profile of a Julius Jones Jr. and Lapati, the positions that they play, and the other schools that are after him, if they commit here in the very near future, I think you're going to start to see a lot more commitments roll in, and it'll happen in a hurry. And that's basically what happened last year. If they can replicate that again, they'll be in prime position to finish with another top 5 class and maybe even a top 3.
That's kind of where I'm at as well. The timing of it, especially with Lapati, would be good. Get your quarterback out of the way. That's always preferred. I wonder about Julius's timing. I think that's more likely to be June or July, but he's a great player. He gets to decide when he wants. So you got to bear with that. Next, are you concerned about any position based on intel this far? And if not, why is it?
I wouldn't say I'm overly concerned about any position just yet. I will be concerned at wide receiver if they miss out on Jones and they miss out on Burrell. Like they've been, those are 2 guys who they've been recruiting for a while. So let's wait and see how those end up playing out. But other than that, I just feel like Notre Dame is in such great shape, and the emphasis that Marcus Freeman and the staff put on high school recruiting. And you've seen a lot of big time programs kind of not shy away, but they've deprioritized it a little bit. They put more focus in the transfer portal. They might not be spending as much money on high school recruits, and that is not what Notre Dame is doing under Marcus Freeman. He's basically doubling down, and don't get me wrong, they are still going to add guys in the transfer portal, and now that they're able to add undergraduate transfers, that really changes the game there as well. But as Marcus Freeman has said many, many times, his program is going to major in high school recruiting. We saw it work perfectly in the last cycle, and I think they're going to do it again this cycle. And I think other recruits take notice of that, the fact that they are such a big priority. I think that's going to help them out in the long term. So not overly concerned about anything just yet, but wide receiver is just a tricky position at Notre Dame. Like they've had their moments, right? They got Kaden Finley. They got 5 wide receivers to commit last year, but they just haven't been able to land that one top 50 guy that everyone else in the country wants. And maybe that'll change, after the fall. If CJ Carr goes out there and throws for like nearly 4,000 passing yards, you might start to see more wide receivers want to come to Notre Dame, but we're going to have to see how that plays out. I'm not concerned yet, but I could see that happening down the road.
I get your point there totally. Chicago, just want your prediction. There's, in my opinion at least, 4 primary guys. David Volaruncho, Braden Parks, Tavares Harrington, and of course, Quentin Burrell. Out of those 4, how many do you think they'll get? They might be the leader for each of the 4. That doesn't mean you're going to sign guys. This is 2026. Anything is possible with NIL.
I would be surprised if they landed all 4, just because that's really difficult to do because they're all very talented and they've got plenty of other suitors as well. Really like where they're at with Braden Parks. I think they're going to get that done. I ultimately think they're going to get Burrell. And then Folarancho, he goes to St. Patrick, which I believe is where Thomas Bukowski coaches. 100%. So they're going to have to get that one done as well. So if you set the over-under at 2.5, I think it'll be close. I do think I feel very comfortable saying they'll get 2, maybe 3, but I think I'll play it safe here and say 2.
I don't know where I would go with which one they wouldn't get. Again, they're leading. They're doing a good job, and this is the best Chicago recruiting has been since late 80s, early 90s. I think the Michael Jordan effect has a lot to do with that. A lot of kids that were 5'10" thought they were going to the NBA. It's not how it works. So those kids are playing receiver, corner, and running back now, and Chicago recruiting has changed quite a bit. Next up, this is kind of a fun one. Do you see any changes to Notre Dame's recruiting effectiveness this year as compared to last year?
Not effectiveness, but I think that there have been some noticeable changes in strategy. Like Pot of Gold Day is not really a big deal anymore. Where in the past, like that was a day that they tried to own on social media. That's when they sent out a ton of offers every single year. And I think they still did something, but you compare it to what they've done in previous years, it was nothing like that. And I think they realized, you know what? Look, it's fun for a day, but it's more important offering these guys earlier, establishing those relationships as early as possible. So that's one thing I've noticed. I've also noticed that they're having less visit weekends, but the caliber of player who attends those visits has gone way up. And one thing that we've seen Marcus Freeman do, and they're clearly doubling down on it. Not only do they like to get guys on campus that like everyone else in the world does, they want to get a bunch of top targets on campus with other top targets. And, I think there's two schools of thought there. Some people might say, well, how do you have the time to give each individual prospect and their families the attention that they feel like they need? But Notre Dame basically goes about it thinking like, well, we want them to basically be together, build that camaraderie, and we think that will actually benefit them more down the road. And we saw it work to a T last summer when they had those 2 weekends, and then they ended up landing pretty much every single guy that they wanted. And it's different, but it's worked for Notre Dame, so I totally understand why they're doing it again, and we're already starting to see the benefits this year. I mean, they had Wissington and they had Rogers on campus at the same exact time for Junior Day, and then both of those guys end up committing just over a week later.
Absolutely. Sometimes you put the kids together and, if they mesh, hey, why don't we play together? It's better to play with each other and win than opposing. So I get it. Finally, we got one more question here. How many commitments will the Irish have going into fall? Let's just say August 1st, which is roughly fall camp. How many are they going to have?
Well, I know the coaches are going to want to be done with the class just like they were last year. I mean, their recruiting work in the fall was getting ahead on the class of 2027 and retaining all the guys that they had committed. And they definitely had to work hard during last season to fend off all those other schools. It's not like once Joey O'Brien and Kari Adams committed to Notre Dame, schools like Oregon and Penn State stopped calling. That was definitely not the case. So they want to get their commitment soon. So for this, I'm going to say 25 because I don't think they're going to be able to get all of the guys committed in the same way that they did last year. I think they're going to be in some recruiting battles during the season, even if that's not, the ideal timeline for the coaching staff. But when you consider the way that they've been operating, the way that they've been able to close the deal on these guys and they take their official visits, I think they're going to be in really good shape. I guess at this point, the question becomes, how many players is Notre Dame willing to take? Because
that's another thing. I don't know if I've been told that number. I'm not sure because it depends. Like if Fakatu is waiting a little longer, you're going to take that kid if he wants to wait till November. So it's a little awkward.
Right.
I get that.
I mean, they took 30 in the class of 2026. Right. Now, granted, Teddy Gerard made it 30 because he reclassified. That wasn't necessarily in the plans to take 2 quarterbacks that cycle until just the way things transpired. But still, I mean, with the way that rosters turn over now in college football, and especially on defense, you could be dealing with a lot of turnover just with so many guys who are going to be eligible for the NFL draft. Like, they're going to need a lot of new players. They've already brought in they had like 24 early enrollees plus all the transfers that they brought in. So they had over 30 new players on the roster for spring practice. And I think that's going to become the norm. Notre Dame is going to continue to take big high school recruiting classes, get them on campus freshman year. And if they don't work out, they'll say, hey man, thanks for coming. You're going to have another opportunity elsewhere. Like they basically let Jadon Blair walk. And when he committed to Notre Dame, that was a big deal. But then when they got on campus, he just got beat out by Ethan Long. And they're like, hey, we're going to keep Ethan. And now Blair's with Missouri. So they're willing to take on a lot more high school prospects than maybe some other schools. But look, I'm not going to criticize their strategy right now because they have given us no reason to do so.
I agree with that. I'm going to say at least 20. Depends on how much they want to go for the high bar because some of those kids waited a little longer. But 20 is the low water mark is kind of where I think, and that's still a really high number, especially for a school like, you went there. It's a different deal. You got to find the right kids. So congrats to everybody in the back office and all that working together. And B, once you get them on campus, they've been doing a great job on campus because we keep hearing this buzz. So congrats to Notre Dame. Tyler, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Locked On Irish every day here, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And it's been an exciting time during spring practice because I've already made the joke on the podcast many times before. This is the longest offseason ever because Notre Dame's season ended after Thanksgiving weekend. But with spring practice and recruiting, there's all kinds of exciting stuff going on. So make sure you tune in and subscribe.
Absolutely. This has been a great crossover, Locked On Irish and the Portal. We will see you again soon.